Okay, we're gonna have to do this as quickly as possible. My baby just fell asleep and he's been having trouble falling asleep. He keeps waking up every hour. So let's get my notes going. You know what's one of the strangest things about success that I find so peculiar? It's the fact that you can succeed without working on yourself. You can succeed through brute force without doing any internal work. I mean, people do it all the time. I know leaders who have done it, who have gotten those promotions, who have gotten those roles, who have succeeded, who have the salaries, but they do it from such a dark place, a very dark energy. This dark energy comes from never having worked on themselves, never having healed those internal wounds that they have that translate through a lot of insecurities, but then at the same time translate into a lack of emotional regulation and leading through not the greatest leadership skills, where people are afraid of them. And if they can avoid it, people will avoid working with them or working under them. Trying to succeed from this place will be harder. It will be a lot heavier than spending that amount of time that it's going to take to work on your trauma, work on your survival mode, work on healing those internal patterns and those internal wounds. Leading from that place will be so much easier. It'll also be so much quicker. It'll take you to that place or that professional goal that you want so much quicker than working from that dark energy. The difference isn't going to be that work ethic or those technical skills or those maybe even communication skills. The difference is going to be the energy that you bring to the table, the energy that you lead through. And I promise you, as much as it's very painful to work through internal healing and even to realize that those internal wounds are impacting your professional life, it's so worth it. Leading from that lighter energy is going to translate through everything that you do, and it's going to get you through those professional goals that you have, through those career ambitions that you have, easier because it just kind of becomes who you are. It becomes a very authentic place for you, and it becomes a place of such emotional strength, embodying your self-worth. I wouldn't say getting rid of insecurities, but embracing insecurities. And all of that is going to translate in your professional career. It'll start becoming like your goals were just meant to happen. They'll start becoming very easy to achieve compared to you constantly fighting against something, everyone, everything in order to achieve those goals that you have. And like I said, it's very possible that you'll still achieve them, but you're going to be so exhausted. And what I mean by working through the dark energy that we bring to the table when we haven't worked on ourselves, when we haven't found the courage to be radically aware about our internal wounds, is that that energy is very heavy. And you'll see it through multiple ways. You'll see it through leading through all of these insecurities. So you'll feel like you're almost performing your leadership role or performing whatever role it is that you're doing versus just embodying and doing it. It'll feel very much like a performance because you're so insecure. It'll look like you needing to prove yourself constantly and all the time, over and over again with every single new team that you encounter. You'll likely work through a lot of imposter syndrome, and rather than feeling comfortable in that space of feeling uncomfortable because you're working through a challenging position, you'll feel really uncomfortable through that imposter syndrome. You'll feel like you're constantly on the verge of being exposed. You're also kind of always on edge, always worried that you're going to be replaced or that you're going to be overlooked, that someone else is going to get the role that you were supposed to get. And you'll also constantly always work through anxiety. Every interaction won't feel easy. Every interaction, you'll feel like you're overthinking, and it'll give you so much anxiety. And it doesn't have to be just with people. It could be even just with yourself, with producing something, with anything that has to do in your professional career. It gives you anxiety. You're not comfortable with yourself. You're not comfortable with what you're producing. You're not comfortable making mistakes. And so that becomes this never-ending state of anxiety that is obviously going to translate into your career, into the way you present yourself as a leader. It's a very, very heavy way of moving through your professional world, compared to that light energy that comes from a very healed version of yourself. I'm using healed as if there's something you can do, you can heal yourself and you're done. But that's not true. I think healing is this never-ending state of improvement of yourself. It's the state of building yourself. I honestly believe that you don't find yourself, you build yourself. And part of building yourself is working through these patterns, working through healing these internal patterns that you have. And so once you've done that, you can operate from a much lighter energy. And that looks like a lot of self-trust. And self-trust doesn't mean that you're not insecure about something or that you're not afraid that you made a mistake. It just means that you trust yourself enough to be okay with a mistake, to be okay with that feedback loop, to not be defensive. That light energy comes with a lot of internal stability. You'll come off as very grounded, very stable, someone that people can trust easily because they can trust your reaction. They can trust that you're reliable. They can trust that you're going to lead them with very consistent and grounded energy. Working off of that light energy will also show up as a lot of confidence in yourself. It will show as having strong boundaries and not feeling guilty about setting those boundaries. And it'll come with a lot of clarity. You'll feel like you know what is your next step every time. Even if there's a little bit of doubt in it, you're comfortable making that step every single time. And your career progress feels steady. It feels constant. It doesn't feel forced. You're not constantly fighting against someone, anything, to get that role or to get that position. And if something doesn't turn out the way that you thought it would, you're comfortable knowing that there will be another path for yourself. So you're going to try again in this side. You have so much resilience, so much trust in yourself that you know that you'll get whatever you want, whatever it is your ambition is, whatever it is your career goals are, because you work from that very internal self-worth place. And so what I find so strange about this is that both of these paths, that dark energy, that light energy, can lead you to the same outcome. But only one of them feels sustainable. Only one of them feels easy. And only one of them lets you walk through life embodying your self-worth and feeling a little bit less insecure, feeling a little less like you're fighting against something all the time. So the reason I wanted to make this video was because we're going into 2026. And I truly and honestly believe that the biggest transformation that you can make to achieve your career goals, to achieve your professional ambitions, and anything else really in life is through working on those internal wounds. To achieve everything that you want to achieve is to work on that radical self-awareness and to break those patterns that are holding you back. And the thing is, that means that in 2026, you don't actually have to work harder to achieve your professional goals. It just really requires you to work differently, because the biggest transformation that you can make in your career, the thing that's really going to make a difference, is changing that internal operating system that you've been working off of that was created from those early experiences. That internal operating system that keeps showing up at work through those consistent patterns that you can't break because of all of that unhealed trauma that you carry with you. And unhealed trauma sounds so heavy, but not everything has to be very heavy. Unhealed trauma can simply be being a perfectionist. But other unhealed patterns also look like those many insecurities that you bring to the table at work, that imposter syndrome that you're constantly working against, that lack of being able to set boundaries because you're such a people pleaser, that lack of self-esteem and self-worth that is constantly with you, but you haven't done anything about it. All the things that you never knew were going to be a factor in your career, in your professional life, because they weren't technical skills, because they weren't your resume, because they weren't achieving that degree. It became your internal operating system. It became all those patterns that you're unable to break, and sometimes you're even unaware that you have. It became who you are inherently, Because that internal operating system that was coded because of all of those early experiences. I don't even know if I used all the right terms there, not a computer engineer, but that system is now so embedded within you that it is what dictates how you move through the world. It's what dictates how you think about yourself. It's that internal narrative that makes decisions for you. It's really your identity, the identity that you took on that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel comfortable. It also makes you feel accepted. And if you have been able to succeed through it, it makes you think that because of it, you are successful, not in spite of it. That system that was shaped by all of your experiences, all of those personal things that you thought you'd be able to ignore and leave behind when it came to your career, when it came to your professional life, just keep popping up. And what do I mean by early experiences? Because it can be very different for everyone. I've talked about my early experiences a lot, and I can mention them again, but it'll be different for everybody. It could look like being raised through scarcity and having a huge scarcity mindset because you were surrounded by people with the same mindset. You were never surrounded by people with an abundance mindset. That looks like maybe you were raised through poverty. Maybe you were raised in a place where success wasn't a good thing. Maybe money is seen as a bad thing, right? Maybe you were taught that being successful was very individualistic. It was very egocentric. I don't know. That scarcity mindset can be through many things. Mine was being raised in poverty, being raised as an immigrant. But there's so many other things. I mean, early responsibility. Actually, this is another one of mine. As an immigrant, my parents had to learn English, and I was the one translating those government documents, the hospital documents, talking to people on the phone to figure out insurance, things like that when I was 6 years old. And all of that really, really created my internal operating system. It made me very responsible at a young age. It made me grow up very quickly. It also brought me a lot of skills that I now am very thankful for, but it still made an impact on my internal operating system. There's so many other things like being unseen, being overlooked a lot, being underestimated. All of these become little slashes inside of yourself, and they become wounds that eventually become our identity. And even though they were the ones that helped you survive what you needed to survive, now they're also showing up at work. It's also possible that that internal operating system has helped you succeed up to this point because you were thriving or you were feeding off of that survival mode that you previously had from your personal experiences. I know this is definitely something that happened to me where the way that I felt really good about taking time off was only if I worked myself to the bone and I was working so much overtime and I was so stressed that all I could do was collapse when I finally got some time off. But it felt so good. It felt so good to be tired, to feel so productive, to feel like I accomplished something that now I finally get to enjoy time off and to completely shut off my brain because I worked myself so hard that finally I deserve to take a break. Only 2 weeks though, because then I had to go back and work really hard again. But you know, or at least I figured out that it was like I was comfortable working in a very high stress environment. That's where I felt the most comfortable. And that's where I felt like I could provide the most value, which isn't true. That I learned from growing up in the survival mode. That I learned because of my own internal wounds, because I hadn't gotten myself out of the survival mode, even though I was no longer poor. I was in a very safe home. I was creating my own peace. I had the career that I always wanted. I had everything to no longer work off the survival mode, and yet I couldn't get myself out of it. It took 10 years to get myself out of it. I was still working off of that energy, even after I had created a very safe space for myself. And the thing is, I did find a lot of success during that time because a lot of high performers can work through all of these issues, all of these personal wounds, it eventually does catch up to them. Having to try to figure out a way to succeed in your career through insecurities, through the lack of self-worth, and essentially using that anxiety-driven performance to get them to where they want to be. It's just going to cost a lot more because it comes with a lot of tension. It comes with a lot of overthinking every single interaction. It even shows up as never feeling accomplished completely, never feeling like you achieved what you wanted to achieve, even though you did, even though you've checked off every single goal. You never feel settled, even when things are going really well for you. And I honestly see this a lot in leaders. I see those internal wounds that were never addressed in the emerging leaders coming in after me, and then in those leaders that are years ahead of me. Those emerging leaders, I can always tell because they're very defensive. They struggle a lot with critical feedback, and they struggle a lot with just having a regular discussion. I can see it in the way that they struggle to let things go and doing things a little bit differently. Even though they're incredible, they can be so technically good, and they can even be really, really good communicators and know how to be detail oriented and explain things to others very well. But it's always these personal interactions where you can see the internal work that they need to do. And if they don't ever work on it, then I see the other side where all of these experienced leaders are in positions that I respect, and I respect them to a point, but I also kind of see through them often to the point where I question their decision a lot, and I question their authority a lot. I see them lack so much emotional regulation and snap constantly and talk poorly about others when they're supposed to be leaders and you're supposed to be able to trust them. So if you continue to work through those patterns, through those unhealed wounds, eventually your reputation is going to be one of where people respect your authority because of the role you have, but they don't respect you as a leader. And you can be so good at what you do. But because of this, your reputation is no longer about your competence. It starts becoming about how people feel around you, which is such an interesting concept, right? Because you would think the leader that you want to follow is someone who knows exactly what they're doing, who is so competent that you can trust all of their technical skills. But in reality, that's not true. The leader that you like working with is the leader that makes you feel empowered, the leader that inspires you, the leader that you feel you can trust in any situation because they're consistent, because of their emotional regulation, because they never make you feel small. And in order to become that leader, you have to break patterns, which takes me back to my original point. In order to gain those roles, in order to become that leader that people want to follow, your first transformation has to be internally. That radical self-awareness, that courage to look at yourself in the mirror and realize what are those patterns that are coming from that internal operating system that you can work on. That is what's going to take you to the next level. The level that you didn't even know existed. Because it's no longer just about the role. It's no longer just about the success in your professional life. It's now kind of about becoming your higher self, becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. And yeah, you can do it through, gaining those technical skills you want, getting the best degrees out there, working on your health, being very healthy, eating very well. But it's never going to be complete without working on your internal stuff. It's always that, isn't there a pyramid somewhere about body, mind, and soul? I think a lot of this stuff has to do with your soul. So you can decide for yourself. I think 2026 is an opportunity to choose whether you're going to work with that lighter energy and travel lighter towards your goal, or if you're going to continue to work against the current, try to put your head down, try to not look in the mirror to achieve those goals that you have for yourself. Okay. That's it. That's everything I wanted to say for this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.